Hello guys, Furball the Hammy, your friendly neighborhood hamster, is back again for another Hypixel Skyblock video. Today's video will be on how you should prepare for dungeons and the new Tier 6 and Tier 7 slayers that should be, in theory, be right around the corner and are long overdue. In fact, Hypixel, they themselves in 2019 have stated that dungeons are going to be released within late March to early April, which means that it should be anytime soon. PS, I'm not a fortune teller, I don't know what's truly meant to be seen in dungeons, and I only know a bit about the Tier 6 and Tier 7 slayers from the sneak peeks themselves. And with that out of the way, let's get onto the video. Firstly, for dungeons, Hypixel has confirmed through leaks that dungeons will have infinite content, which will likely constantly change and would be less repetitive for slayers, as the mobs and the environment will constantly change, which will mean basically a relatively fresh experience for each dungeon run. Hence, I will be focusing on the strong general items that you may want to get for dungeons. And for armor, let us begin off with the recommendations that I have, mainly Superior Dragon Armor and Perfect 12. And on top of that, if you want to meme or to actually be even more prepared, I recommend bringing in Pack Armor and Frozen Blaze Armor. So yeah, let us get on and to explain why I said these are my recommendations. Firstly, for Superior Dragon Armor, it is relatively self-explanatory. It is overhyped, but it's still amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's just not as good as what everyone claims to be that is necessary for dungeons. There will definitely be more sets than Superior that can deal with dungeons, and the alternative set would be Perfect 12. Perfect 12 would likely be useful in dungeons due to the reluctance of admins trying to buff Perfect Armor, as you can see by how admins constantly argue and tell the player base that Perfect 12 will be useful in dungeons and doesn't need a buff. And because of that, we all can kind of infer that Perfect 12 would likely be useful in dungeons and might actually be really overpowered for future content, and how strong it may actually be, as it can infer from the admin's unwillingness to actually buff it, even though it is quite bad in the meta right now. So yeah, I might think you should want to consider getting Perfect 12 now while it's cheap, before it skyrockets when dungeons actually require it. And on top of having Perfect 12, I highly recommend for you to maybe get a Revived Heart, or let's say if you are balling and rich, be sure to get a Reaper Mask. It seems like something extra you could try to get, since it gives the highest true defense set out of every single armor set. It literally gives base plus 20 true defense against animals, and that can become plus 25 true defense with the true defense enchant that you can buy from the shaman in the Howling Caves. I believe that Pack Armor is somewhat of a fusion between Mastiff and Strong Dragon Armor, as it is able to deal with true damage like Mastiff Armor, but also able to dish out damage with its set bonus, which is made even better when you have a team of Pack Armor players. So I think Pack Armor allows you to have some defense, especially against mobs with true damage, similarly like Mastiff, but on top of that, it doesn't have the low damage for the weakness of Mastiff, because Mastiff has minus 50% crit damage, but Pack Armor doesn't. But Pack Armor also has true defense, and on top of that, Pack Armor also gives you extra strength and a set bonus when you are nearby other players who are wearing Pack Armor as well, which means that I believe Pack Armor can do similar damage to Strong while having good true defense capabilities like Mastiff. And last but not least, I will tell you why Frozen Blaze is now good. However, you need an epic blaze pet at the very minimum to run Frozen Blaze and to justify getting Frozen Blaze. In fact, Frozen Blaze plus a level 100 epic blaze pet does more damage than Superior and Strong, because Blaze pet buffs Blaze Armor by a whopping 40%. The entire Blaze Armor set, which includes Strength, which is heavily overlooked, and when that buff is added, it is really strong. If you want to go even further and get a level 100 legendary blaze pet, it also buffs Hot Potato effectiveness by 2 times, which means that your weapon also gets a slight damage buff at plus 20 damage and plus 20 strength, and your armor, you also get an additional plus 160 health and plus 80 defense, which reduces Frozen Blaze Armor low defense vulnerabilities even further, as it allows your Frozen Blaze Armor to continue nuking damage while making up for its weak defenses by buffing the hot potato effects. And with that, let us move on to the recommended weapons. For weapons, I would recommend the Aspect of the Dragons as it is the cheapest and the most budget option, the 50mm Midas, and the Pigman Sword. It is pretty straightforward, it doesn't need much explanation since all of these items are great in the meta. On a side note, if you don't want to buy a legendary or an epic dragon pet and get it to level 100, I recommend you just buying a 50mm Midas instead. But if you want the maximum damage, then get a max Aspect of the Dragons and a legendary dragon pet if you can afford it, of course. And on top of that, I would also like to recommend certain weapons that are relatively niche and unused. The weapons I would like to recommend will also be the edible mace. It might be very overpowered whenever you're fighting dungeons with animals. And on top of that, if let's say tier 6 Savant hits really hard, you can use the edible mace ability to whack Savant with your ability and to reduce Savant's damage by 35%, which I think can be very clutch and useful when fighting tier 6 Savant. And on top of that, I believe that there are also supportive weapons that you may want to consider to get. The support weapons that I would recommend would be the Reaper Scythe, the Ornate Zombie Sword, the Overflux Power Orb, not really a weapon but I just put it right there, and last but not least, the Endstone Sword. Now, finally, some interesting things to talk about. The Reaper Scythe. It is legendary for dungeons. Not only does it give plus 150% damage on whatever weapon you are holding if you have enough mana, since zombies don't give invincibility frames anymore. Furthermore, on top of that, you also get an additional plus 0.45% lifesteal, making it a total of 0.75% lifesteal, which is huge due to the 150% bonus from zombies, which also copies enchantments. And with the plus 150% damage and the plus 0.45% lifesteal, on top of that, it gives massive amounts of healing and massive amount of damage. However, if you can't afford a Reaper Scythe or you prefer having a burst and a support heal option to help your teammates, the Ornate Zombie Sword is an option. It's just a zombie sword with an enchanted gold block and golden powder, which is a 0.5% rare drop from golden ghouls in the crypts. Next up will be the Overflux Power Orb. The Overflux Power Orb is amazing as it gives percentage based healing, extra strength, extra mana regeneration, and even plus 5% healing. It will be an essential for the strongest dungeons team, and at least one player has to have this item in the team. And before you start cringing, I will tell you why the Endstone Sword is powerful. Although it consumes all your mana, it gives you extra damage on your next hit and damage invincibility for 5 seconds as long as you don't hit anything during the 5 seconds. This is overpowered. Let me repeat myself. If dungeons has bosses that can dish out massive damage attacks, like in similar RPG games where the boss always has an overpowered ultimate attack which results in instant death or near death guaranteed, the Endstone Sword with proper timing and skill can definitely help you completely negate insta death damage or near death attacks. Oh, and if you want to make sure you never die, you can run the Spirit Mask, the Epic Phoenix Pet, and the Endstone Sword. You physically cannot die because all of these items all give invincibility when you are near death. And on top of that, we shall now move on to the recommended pets. So first and foremost, the recommended pets here will be the Epic Parrot Pet, the Legendary Pigman Pet if you are using the Pigman Sword, the Legendary or the Epic Dragon Pet if you are using the Aspect of the Dragons, the Legendary or the Epic Blaze Pet if you are using Frozen Blaze Armor, and the Legendary Sheep Pet if you are running a mana based setup, for example Reaper Scythe plus the Reaper Mask, allowing you to summon up to 10 zombies, but you need 1500 mana, which this pet can help out a lot with. And on top of that, don't forget your Epic Phoenix Pet, and I will tell you why only Epic and not Legendary. The Epic Pet is self-explanatory. You don't want to run out of potions mid-fight, it's just really dumb, and having long potions are just generally useful because you can run more dungeons without being splashed as much, which means you will save yourself a lot of time and you will also save yourself a lot of materials. Next up will be the legendary Pigman pet. The legendary Pigman pet makes the Pigman sword powerful because it buffs the Pigman sword. Furthermore, since dungeon bosses will certainly be tough, they will have a higher mob level than level 100, which means that the legendary Pigman pet ability will do even more damage against it due to its third ability, Giant Killer. Next up, the legendary Dragon pet. The legendary and the epic Dragon pet is self-explanatory. It makes the aspect of the dragon stronger than the 50mm Midas, which is ludicrous, and on the bright side, the legendary version only gives plus 10% stat boost when maxed, while the epic version is 10 times cheaper, but gives the majority of the extra damage as it has the ability to increase your aspect of the dragon damage and strength stats. So if you are using the aspect of the dragons and maybe you are somewhat poor but not that poor, you should buy the epic dragon pet and level it up. Next up, for the legendary and epic blaze pet, this has already been covered when I was explaining in the previous armor section for Frozen Blaze, but the legendary and epic blaze pet basically makes your Frozen Blaze armor become a nuking armor set by doing the most damage in the game, and on top of that, the legendary version also gives your weapons a slight damage boost on top of the 40% extra strength you get, and on top of that, it also makes your defensively weak Frozen Blaze armor gain more survivability due to the double effectiveness of hot potato books. And moving on, the legendary sheep pet. Oh yes, my favorite. Back when I said that the Reaper mask is bad as it could theoretically allow you to summon 10 zombies, but back then you physically couldn't get 1500 mana consistently and regenerate it quickly enough, Crystal Armor Swap doesn't count as it is a one-time mana boost. However, with the legendary sheep pet, which saves mana usage and when in dungeons has an ability that boosts your base mana even higher, it would certainly be just enough for the Reaper mask to summon the 10 zombies to do the plus 300% extra damage on whatever weapon you are holding and even more lifesteal. This pet indirectly gives you even more damage, especially if you own the Reaper Scythe. And last but not least, don't forget the epic Phoenix pet. Now the reason why I say don't get the legendary Phoenix pet is because the epic Phoenix pet has all the abilities you need for dungeons. The epic Phoenix pet gives you the ability to escape death when you are hit by a lethal attack. It gives you invulnerability and extra strength when you get hit by an attack that you were supposed to die by. Instead of dying, you would be protected and you will be shielded while you get extra damage, which means that the Phoenix pet will be very useful when fighting bosses which dish out multiple heavy damage attacks that may result in death. And on top of that, if you pair it with a spirit mask, you will pretty much have invulnerability every single time. You will not die, and with that, I think that the epic Phoenix pet will definitely see play in dungeons because of its high survivability. And with that, I hope you guys would have something to grind towards if you want to deal with dungeons, and I hope you guys enjoyed, and this is Furball the Hammy, the introverted hamster, signing out.